Hey, welcome to the Digitally Overwhelmed podcast. My name is Cynthia, your host, and I'm the owner of Digital Bloom IQ, where I help health and wellness businesses get found in Google and heal more of the world. This is episode 152 of the podcast, and today I'm going to talk all about how to integrate your SEO into your marketing plan and just make sure that the marketing plan is really working in tandem with the rest of your SEO efforts. So if you want to get show notes, all my episodes have show notes. You can go to my website, digitalbloomiq.com/SEO/marketing-plan. You can also just go to my website and go to the podcast tab, and all these episodes are also blog posts, so you can just check them out either on the blog section or the podcast section. And I usually add a couple extra resources and notes on the blog because I feel like once I've recorded and I start to write out that blog post, I have additional ideas and just things get processed differently. So definitely if you want to delve into this topic in more detail, I recommend checking out the blog and seeing that version of the content. I also want to mention that if you are interested in this topic, I have a couple other episodes I highly recommend you check out. First is last week's episode 151, creating a blogging plan. That one has a lot of great ideas. There is a little bit of overlap, but not too much when it comes to blogging and how to stay consistent with your blogging. So again, that's episode 151, creating a blogging plan. I also recommend you check out episode 138, where I talk about measuring SEO results. And I think this is really important because when you're looking at your marketing plan, a lot of you are asking, well, what's effective? Where am I getting my return? And something that a lot of people ask me about with SEO is like, how do I know if it's working? What are the results? So that episode talks a lot about metrics. I kind of take you behind the scenes of how I measure results for my own clients and for myself. And so I think that's a really useful episode. And then lastly, I want to mention an episode back in season 3, episode 90, that's called Slow versus Fast Marketing. And I really like that episode. I think it's kind of like a foundational episode, to be honest, because I talk a lot about how to look at the different components of your marketing in different ways, right? And again, with SEO, it's more of a marathon than a sprint. So it's helpful to go in with those expectations. And in that episode, I kind of break out the different types of marketing you can be doing and the different results you're going to be getting. So that's episode 90. So before I dive into the content, last thing I want to mention is that there is one spot left for the SEO strategy intensives in September. I talked a lot about it in the last episode. I'll briefly talk about it at the end of this episode, but basically it is a intensive 2-hour call where we do keyword implementation. You also get a custom lesson on keyword research and strategy, and we talk about your SEO plan for the next 3 months. So it's really fun. There's more information on my website. If you go to digitalbloomiq.com and then go to services, you'll see under one of the options is SEO strategy intensives. And again, stick around to the end if you want to kind of hear me riff a little bit more on that. All right, so let's dive in. A marketing plan that supports your SEO. So maybe some of you are wondering if that title should be the other way around, like SEO supports marketing or marketing supports SEO. The thing is, I am 100% aware that SEO is not the only thing you're doing in your business. And I actually highly recommend that SEO is not the only thing you do in your business, unless you're like an SEO nerd like me and you just want to just see the experiments and the things that work on just doing websites. But Google is really smart nowadays, and it's not enough to just be focusing on keywords. And so what I talk a lot about is the marketing ecosystem, right? And how all these different parts of your marketing are working together so that SEO is doing the best thing it can be doing. Because Google isn't just looking at your website. They're looking if you do have presence on other sites, and depending on what your website is about, depending on what you're selling, they're going to definitely want to verify that you have presence and you are known as an authority in what you're talking about in other places. So the best example is if you're a doctor, for example, and you are selling medical services on your website, they are going to want to see, are you listed, in the directory of that type of medicine? Or are you quoted by other well-known websites that talk about that medical, whatever you specialize in? Now that's like a really specific case, but it kind of can be used in anything because, again, if you are building a business and your website is supporting that, you're going to just naturally be featured in other places. So organically, this was going to happen. And so you're going to be building an ecosystem. So, right. So your marketing plan is doing a lot of things for you. You've got different channels, you have different efforts, you have maybe some paid marketing, maybe you have some non-paid or organic, as we call it. And so you're just wondering, how can I do the best I can do when it comes to being consistent with all my marketing and SEO playing a role in that, or starting to play a role in that, right? So maybe you've kind of done some SEO, but it's been inconsistent. Or maybe you have been doing SEO, you just want to make sure that it's going to be really, really effective, right? Because the time we spend doing all these things, it's our precious time, right? And we want to make sure that it's as effective as it can be. So here are 3 tips for making sure that your marketing plan is supporting your SEO and vice versa, right? It's a two-way street. So number 1 is all about strategy, which you guys know I love to talk about. But it's true. Like if you don't have a strategy, there is a chance that the things you're doing are going to make an impact, but there's also a chance they won't. So you need to be very clear on your strategy. So getting specific about how SEO is playing a role in the user journey is really important. So when I worked in the corporate world, big companies that I worked with, big clients, they spend a lot of their resources researching and really getting specific and understanding how do people interact with our brand and with our products or services. So there's all these, it's like a journey, right? I'm using my hands for those of you listening to the podcast. It's an up and down sort of thing. In general, depending on what you're selling, people don't buy on the first visit. Sometimes they do, depends on the price point. There can be some exceptions, but there's like a back and forth. And so people get to know you. And so, for example, SEO in many cases can be that first touch, that first precious touch that people find you on Google and they're like, oh my God, this person is exactly what I need in my life. And then they do a bunch of research and then they come back. Or they go to your social media and they come back. Or they go explore your podcast and then they come back to your website to read show notes. So there's this back and forth. And I'm not saying you need to be like one of those big companies that spends lots and lots of time, but you do need to think about it. At least think about how you spend time on websites and how you buy things. How many times do you search something before you're ready to make pull that trigger? And I know it depends on what you're buying, but think about maybe for digital services, if that's what you do, whatever you're selling, thinking about your own experience can be really interesting. And then I also recommend doing some market research. So go out there and ask your clients, ask people who you consider to be your ideal audience. Don't ask random friends that aren't in your field, because you're going to get all sorts of data and it's not all going to be helpful. Try and really make sure that you ask people who you know need your services and are interested in your services. And it could be helpful to get a mastermind buddy in this case, or someone who understands your industry. If you have a coach, ask them that sort of stuff too. just understanding where is SEO part of this whole ecosystem of how someone gets to know my brand. And how do I want it to be? So maybe you have a current reality now, but then in the future, you want it to be something else. And that's totally fine. But getting really specific and clear about that intention is going to change the game for you, because it's not just this thing that you quote unquote should be doing. It's something that you meaningfully believe in, that's part of the user journey. And so every time you sit down to do these things, or if you eventually decide to hire someone to help you with your SEO, the meaning is different, and it's going to help with the implementation side or the setup side of doing SEO. Okay, so that's my spiel about strategy, and maybe some of you are like, oh, I don't care about that. Tell me else. What else? Okay, so tip number 2 is really important. It might surprise some of you. Balancing specific keywords with other content ideas that are not based on keywords. So I think a lot of my clients are surprised when I kind of tell them, well, just write what you feel like writing about. And I feel like it's really not realistic. And again, unless you're like a keyword or an SEO fanatic, it's not realistic to think that every single keyword every single piece of content you put out there is going to be perfectly aligned with your keywords. And I actually think it's a good thing to have a balance. And so you can decide that ratio. Maybe it's for every 3 blog posts you write, you do one that's really SEO friendly, and you really focus in on that, and you're like so obsessed with it, but you're consistent with that, right? And the reason I recommend this approach versus every single keyword or every single content needs to be, made around a keyword, is that can feel really restricting, especially at the beginning. And I know those of you who are listening to this, you're very creative. You have ideas. You want to change the world in different ways that no one has ever seen before. And thinking about content, when someone is giving you a keyword or you find a keyword, can feel kind of like weird. It's like, oh, like this is someone else's idea and I need to take it in here. So I really recommend doing a balance, and it can just be 2 different initiatives that work together. So you've got content that is based on keywords that are easy for you to target, that has good traffic each month, and you're creating the best damn content you can around that keyword. And then you've got other keywords that you're just like, look, I want to write about this because I know it's important. And you don't even worry about that keyword research, because the truth is, and here's the truth, if you are really in tune with your audience, if you're really in tune with who you're helping and what their needs are, the keywords are going to come on their own, because you're already using the right keywords. You're already targeting those searches that people are using. And so then you might be saying, well, why do I even need keyword research then if I'm if I'm naturally targeting that? And the reality is that sometimes having that data just changes the way that we create that content in the first place. So I think it's a balance. And the reality as well is that a lot of these keyword research tools that we have aren't 100% accurate, right? So they've got a whole bunch of data. They have trends. They are helpful. I base a lot of my client keywords on these tools that I use, but I tell clients, go and write about things that you feel like writing about. Nothing is going to take away your intuition, your creativity. And I think a good SEO plan and a good marketing plan is the right balance of data and creativity. It doesn't need to do one or the other. And it kind of depends on your personality as well. I have clients who are like, well, I really just don't know what to write about. And so their keywords can be helpful. Or maybe sometimes they do have a lot of ideas, but they've never thought about them in the way that a keyword expresses them. And this has happened to me before, where I'll find a keyword and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even know people were asking that question. Like, I recently was doing keyword research for my own website, and I realized that there's a lot of people who are interested in SEO, but they don't really know what it is. And a lot of content in my business has been about dumbing it down. And not that people are dumb, but I work at a certain level and then I forget that the basics are so important. Like people just need that basic definition of this is what SEO stands for. This is what it literally is, because people are saying it all the time and they're like, well, what does it actually mean? So having a keyword like what is SEO wouldn't have come to me on its own. Like it was like, oh, right. Like that's such a good topic. That's going to be a future podcast and blog post. So number 2, again, is balancing that specific keyword research and investigation with all your other content ideas and things that you just feel from your heart that you need to write about. And who knows, maybe in the future that content idea will turn into a keyword and then you're going to go back and optimize it around that keyword. So it's not just like this linear thing. I think about it as like tending a garden. You know, you plant seeds, some seeds grow, some others don't. Then you go back and you change the soil, you like add more fertilizer. This is something I did last weekend with my actual garden. You know, I didn't know this was a thing. Like every once in a while, you need to kind of like repot the plant or like just add more nutrients or just like it grows. And so it needs more space. So you need to like change the pots and stuff like that. So same thing happens with your SEO strategy. You need to go back, and that's part of a living and breathing marketing plan as well. Okay, so let's move on to number 3, which is integrate your SEO tasks into an existing workflow. This is definitely something I talked about in the last episode, and I go into it in quite some detail, but I'll say it here again. Starting something new for most of us requires a lot, especially during these times. I've been trying to start a new meditation practice, and man, I've been struggling. And I realized the reason it's hard is because I need 30 minutes of time, and that's a lot. It feels like a lot of time, even if it's 30 minutes. So what I decided is like, what if I, instead of 30 minutes, I make it 15 minutes? And so that suddenly feels much more reasonable to start, because maybe once I get started, it won't be so bad. I can do 30 minutes. So the same thing goes with your SEO tasks and how you combine them with your marketing plan. Is what am I already doing on the marketing side, whether it's writing content, whether it's scheduling, formatting, brainstorming ideas, whatever all your tasks are. Where can you do 15 minutes? Where can you add 15 minutes more of an existing task and do a little bit of SEO? So keyword research, maybe a little bit of keyword implementation. Maybe it's just research and seeing, like, just learning, right? Learning from my content or other SEO content or whatever. So that is really important, and making it super bite-sized and easy is going to ensure that you are being more consistent and that in the long run, you're getting more of an impact. So the biggest example I give, and again, I talk a lot about this in the last episode, is you're writing your content. Add 15 minutes to that time that you allotted to do that and do keyword implementation for that 15 minutes. That's it. As far as you get, right? Doesn't matter if it's, not perfect, but you did 15 minutes. That's better than last time. And if you do that consistently on a weekly or whatever your rhythms are, you're going to start to see results. And then over time, maybe you can add 30 minutes. Then over time, maybe you can even add an hour of SEO work or hand that off to your VA or web developer or web designer, whoever is taking care of your website. So doing it like that is just much more realistic, and it's really more just fun, because you don't need to like put this whole brick of like, I need to I need to be doing SEO for like an hour a week. It's like, oh my God, I can hardly do this other stuff, washing the dishes or whatever you're avoiding right now in your life. So 15 minutes, even 5, honestly, anything is better than nothing, but like consistently 5 to 10 minutes added on to the end of your content writing tasks can do wonders. So those are my 3 tips. Let's go through them again. So number 1, get really specific about the user journey and where SEO plays a role in that journey, and where you really see, you really visualize your ideal person is doing that. They're searching Google, they're finding you, they're looking at your services, they're buying your courses, they're coming back, they're joining your Facebook group. They're, how are they kind of like pinging these different parts of the journey, and SEO is playing a role. Like they remember your name, but they didn't remember the website. So they search your name again, or they search the name of your offer, but they don't remember the name of your brand. So they search your name again. So it doesn't always have to be that first touch, but it can be throughout the whole journey, because people use Google a lot. They're using Google, trust me. Okay, number 2, balancing keyword research and specific keywords to the rest of your content ideas. So not everything has to be super SEO friendly from the beginning, and I actually recommend that you just set the standard to where you want it to be. If you want to do one SEO specific keyword topic per month, and then the rest are other ideas, that's fine. You can plan this way in advance. You can spend some time and just map out the keywords you want to target in the next 3 to 6 months, and you're done. You don't need to do any more specific keyword research. And then the last thing, integrating your SEO tasks into an existing workflow that is part of your marketing plan will change the game, because you're not going to be just like forgetting to do SEO. You've just integrated it into something that already exists, and it suddenly feels like easy. You don't need to worry about it. It's just going to happen right after you finish that other thing. It's going to happen after. And you can just get on with your day, and you don't need to be, keep beating yourself about how you haven't done SEO and you should be doing it and blah, 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 and stop doing that, guys. You don't need that. All right, so those are my 3 tips. I hope that they're helpful. I would love to hear where you're at right now with your SEO journey. The best way to do that is going to this specific blog post. Again, that's digitalbloomiq.com/SEO/marketing-plan, and leaving a comment and letting me know where are you at with your marketing and your SEO. And the last thing I want to talk about is the SEO strategy intensives. So just really quickly, because I don't want to get into it too much. I did last episode. I noticed one of the biggest things that my clients struggle with is taking action on their SEO. They know about it. They understand it. They believe in it. But then they're like, oh, but I actually have to do it. Like I don't have it's kind of like this energy. Like I don't have that, I don't know. It's kind of like when you go to the gym and that first time you've gone in a while and you're like, oh, like it takes so much more strength. There's probably like a physics term for that, right? That initial push. Same thing happens with SEO. There's that initial push that like people struggle with. And that is exactly what these intensives are designed to do. I'm pushing you. I'm the one pushing you. So the cool thing is it's this beautiful combination of strategy, and we're talking about your strategy, but we're also taking action. So the call itself is 2 hours. Before the call, you get a pre-business questionnaire, and the questionnaire in itself is very helpful because it starts getting you thinking about things you'd never thought about with your SEO and how it fits into everything. So the questionnaire is there. It also helps me understand your business and that jazz. And then we get on a call, and it's a 2-hour call. It feels like a long time. It seems like a long time, but it goes by flying, because the first part of the call, we're looking at your search personas. We're defining that. Then the second part of the call, we're actually going into your website. So you're going to give me access to your site, and we're actually adding keywords during the call. So it's going to just kind of like take that resistance out of the whole thing, because we're just going to do it. We're going to do it for 5 pages on your site. If you're brave enough, you'll get the baton and you'll do it for one of the, or a couple of the pages if you really want to. I'll be there right next to you, just if I was like sitting next to your coffee or tea, and we're just going to get it done. The other thing that happens before that, I'm all out of order today, is that I show you how to do keyword research specifically for those branding keywords. So most of you have a general sense of keyword research, but here you see me do it, and I show you literally, this is how I do it. And then those are the keywords we use to add to your website. And then the last part of the call is creating a blogging plan. And this is very much kind of what I talked about today during the episode, is making sure that that plan is going to happen. It's going to be something you can do consistently and just without too much effort, to be honest. It's just going to like naturally kind of roll into your marketing plan, and it's not going to be a big deal, right? It's just going to start happening because now you have a plan, you have a strategy. So currently we're in September and the intensives are discounted. They're discounted quite a bit. So if you want to get more information, again, go to my site, digitalbloomiq.com, services, select SEO intensives, apply. There is a mini application process because I do want to make sure that you're a good fit for these intensives. And then that's it. And then you'll walk away. There's one spot left in September, and then going forward in October, the price is going to go up. I'm still going to be doing them going forward, but my availability will be a little different because there's some new stuff happening in October and then November, and you know how it is. So now is a good time, basically. All right, my friends, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time to learn about your SEO and listen to my podcast and my content. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and see you next week. Bye.